You ready?
No.
Is this one recording?
Yes.
All right. Hey guys, John here from Sonic Drive Studio. I hope you're all doing well. And for the first time in history, I'm joined here by a genius, a musical genius. And that is Daniel from the awesome brand Lichtlaerm Audio.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Sonic Drive Studio, man.
Yeah. Hi. It's so nice to be here. I have to say, like, this wall of amps looks even more impressive in real than it does on the internet.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, you drove all the way from Berlin to get here, which is really cool. How long was the drive again in total?
Like maybe 7.5 hours.
7.5.
I stayed at a friend on the way, so
awesome.
I was okay.
That's metal dedication right there. So you are here for a couple of special reasons. One of the reasons is this awesome amplifier, of course. Let's talk about this thing, but first I'd just like to ask you a couple of questions about yourself and the brand Lichtlaerm Audio.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm from Berlin, Germany. I'm an active musician for almost 15 years now. Moved to Berlin to study musicology because I wanted to get really into music, like become a professional musician at some point, maybe. Mm-hmm. But during that time, I developed like a complicated heart disease that's chronic, that like kicked me out of life for a few years, and I had to like readjust everything, like see where do I want to go, what am I doing, and so I used the time to get into electronic engineering and used my contacts in the music scene to get like feedback. What do people need? What do they want? Mm-hmm. And that kind of what sparked the idea to start Lichtlaerm Audio. And yeah, like fast forward now, I don't know, like 5 years later, here I am and got quite the lineup and finally getting into amps, my big
adventure.
Yes.
So this isn't even like the entire lineup. This is I guess you could say a selection. How many pedals are there currently in your lineup?
12, and like there's a lot more finished that will be released over the next year.
Awesome. Exciting. I'm really excited because as you know, I've really enjoyed trying out every single pedal. I really like them a lot, and you know, they sound good. They all have special features that make them unique, and they also look really cool. So yeah, and obviously I'm a tube amp fanatic, so this amplifier is just super exciting to me as well. Before we started filming this, we tried this amplifier, which you probably already heard in the demo and the intro. We'll do another demo a bit later in the video, but it sounds absolutely awesome. Even with like very little dialing in, it already sounds so great, and it cuts really well in the mix, and there's, you know, a healthy amount of saturation, and it's also, I think, a unique sounding amplifier, which is cool. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here because I also wanted to ask about the brand in general. Like, what is your goal with the brand in terms of what makes the brand as a whole unique? And what do you think are, or who do you think are the products geared towards?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that we mainly do stuff for metalheads. Mm-hmm. Like, I come from extreme metal myself. Like, I play black death metal, but I like a more classic sound. Like, a good guitar sound is a good guitar sound, mm-hmm. and it's been like that since the 80s. And you can carry a lot of that and make it more extreme, more versatile, and gear it towards, like, modern guitar players. It's what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. Like, with all our pedals, like, you can't reinvent the wheel. Like, electronics are electronics, and what I try to do is like add interesting features that no one else did before. Like with the Medusa, the current one that you did, like adding a noise gate, parametric EQ, and the loop. It's like a combination of different features and offer them for like an affordable price for like normal people.
Yeah.
Because like I grew up having no money. That's why I started building my own pedals.
Yeah.
And I want those people who can't afford like super boutique-y stuff to be able to get them as well.
Cool.
So that's what it's mainly geared at, like normal people that like to play heavy sounds and want mm-hmm. a lot of versatility and chase their own tone instead of going like the same routes that a lot of other people do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, I've been having a lot of fun with these pedals, and a couple of your like signature controls that I really like are obviously like the cut control that's on, I think, most of your pedals, right? At least the distortion pedals.
Like everything that is like boost or distortion has the cut control, because it really helps like adjusting to the tuning of the guitar and like the playing style. Like you can cover mostly like from doom and stoner to like modern metal with one control.
Yeah. In today's music, like in modern music, a lot of people like to put boost pedals in front of their amplifiers to make it more tight and stuff like that. And like the cut control in itself is already like a very great way to control the tightness or the low end response of your tone. So that's already a very powerful. You could make one single pedal based on that, actually.
Yes.
Like the cut pedal. That could be fun. But,
I mean, the original Aesahaettr was like kind of that thing. It just had a boost and the cut.
Yeah.
Just for like the relaunch of the company like 1.5 years ago after my break, I decided let's add in 4-band EQ, which is like the other standout feature.
Yeah.
I like to split the mids. Guitars live in the mids, and
oh, absolutely. And another feature that I also really like on some of the pedals is the gate.
Yes.
Because it's just such a good sounding gate, and it's also wonderful to have it inside of, say, a distortion pedal rather than having to need an external gate, because sometimes the good gates just have one control, and then you can just fit that control in one pedal, and it saves a lot of space too.
I mean, the gate, or like it's called the key and the gate, which is like our original gate design that I designed sometime around 2016, 15, 16, before Lichtlaerm was even a thing. And it was like what really brought the company forward. Like everyone in Germany, for example, has this gate, and like it's really well received, and I'm super happy about that. And like I thought it's not cheap to put it in a pedal, but it's really useful, and I want to do useful things. And as we can see later, like the whole key and the gate, like with a 4-cable method already incorporated, is in the amp as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I've got one more question. Yes. Like, out of the current lineup, excluding the amplifier, what are some of your favorite pedals, just for your own, your own pleasure, if you know what I mean?
Like the thing, I said it a lot of times, like my favorite is the Amber Spyglass, probably. Because it's so versatile. Like you can put it in front of the amp and transform like the gain structure completely. Like you can make a Strat sound like a Fat Les Paul, and the other way around. Yeah. You can put it in the loop and like emulate the Mark V, more like Mesa Mark series EQ, or can make a thin sounding amp with a great distortion sound finally sound fat. And like it's kind of a helper to bring other gear to its full potential that it always had. Like there are so many great designs where you think like, that's just missing this tiny bit. And that's usually what I like. Not changing everything completely, but just helping it push out the door.
Cool. Yeah, man. Well, like I said, I like them all. And if you're interested in checking out these pedals, of course, I did a bunch of videos on my channel that I will link below. But do check out the Lichtlaerm Audio website as well for more information about all these pedals. But now we're going to talk about the big thing, which is sitting on this cabinet over here. And this is, of course, the amplifier. And this is a prototype, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
We built it for Guitar Summit this year, so we can show like a first look on the amp. Like it still has the old name. Like we made like a public poll, and people decided to call it Prometheus, which I'm really satisfied with. And yeah, like it does a lot of things. Like it incorporates a lot of things that are like typically Lichtlaerm, and like we will offer a lot of customizing options. Like the look is unique, the sound is unique, like even the whole circuit is different from what you would usually see in like a high gain amp.
Yeah. let's discover a little bit what this amplifier can do. So in terms of wattage and tubes, what's in here?
In this one we have two 60A7s and two KT88s, which totals in at, I haven't measured it, but it's somewhere around 140 and 160 watts. The thing is, like, it can take every kind of tube. You can choose it when you order it, and it can range from basically 80 to almost 200 watts if you go like full on KT88 and want like a lot of stability in the low end, no breakup from the power amp. You can have that. You can also have like a lower wattage version, and it has bias points on the back, so you can change tubes yourself like as you want. You can put any type of novel tube in there and adjust it yourself.
Cool. So when you order the amp, you're going to get the option to
Exactly.
Cool.
Like we have a whole option list, and you can basically mix and match like the look of the amp. We have different knobs, we have different wood stains, we have like in general like different looks. You can change the power tubes and stuff like this.
Cool. And regarding the power tubes, what is your own personal favorite combination or tube type?
It depends. Like I really like the combination we have now. Like the KT88s are like really three-dimensional and full range. Like they give like low bass, like sub basses that you don't get from other tubes. They also have like this sparkling high end, but they're mixed with 60A7s now, which is like a cross of EL34 and 6L6. So it has like the fat bottom end, but still the like gnarly mid-range that EL34 amps have. Like it cuts really well in the mix and has like a really complex mid-range that's like unlike any other amp. Or like my other favorite combination would be KT88s and 6L6. You know it from the Driftwood amps. Like it just has this huge bottom end, but still like a clear and controlled bottom end.
I think I have that combo in my Purple Nightmare, in fact. So one thing that I'm sometimes a bit curious about and that I want to ask you about is do you really notice a huge difference between power tubes? Or is it only when you push them really hard where you start to notice the difference? Or is it also like an interaction with the amplifier? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It depends on the amplifier design.
Okay.
Like one thing is like how much negative feedback do you have? How is the power amp designed? Also, like every tube that you put in there needs a different bias. And biasing them different changes the sound structure. Like we tried a lot of tubes, and this one is like really receptive to different tubes. There are also amps where you don't really notice, like with the EVHs, for example, like it doesn't really matter that much. Like the EL34, you can notice like a tiny bit of more mid-range, but only if you like push them. But they are biased so
very cool, right?
Exactly. So that the sound comes mainly from the preamp. But this has like a lot of focus on the power amp. Like the resonance or depth and presence controls are like super reactive here. And those react with the power tubes and the whole system back there. So this makes a huge difference in this case. Like we tried them and it was like switching to a different amp.
Okay. Oh, cool. That's very interesting. Because there's a lot of like stories on the internet and a lot of myths about that. You know, a lot of people have different opinions on that. But that's why I wanted to ask somebody who has actual experience with experimenting with tubes and stuff like that.
I mean, it's correct if you talk about certain amps. The thing is, like, especially in the high gain department, a lot of people who do those experiments do it with 5150s, 6505s, or EVH 5150s, which are all cold biased amps where the power amp does nothing but amplify. Like it's not made to color the amp. So if you change something inside in a circuit that's not made to color, how should it change something?
And also I think the EVHs, for example, I think that like the EL34 version is voiced differently in the preamp than the 6L6 version, and that's maybe causing a much bigger difference than the actual power tube types.
It has an additional capacitor that's like really famous to mod out, like C137. You can cut it and it almost sounds like the 6L6 version. And I mean, those changes in the power amp, like even with 6505s, 5150s, you know, a lot of people do the bias mod, which is a change to the power amp. So you can hear like it does something in the power amp if you change the bias from the typical cold and like unresponsive bias that they usually have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Interesting stuff. Okay, so back to the amp. One thing that I noticed, just the general thing about the amplifier, is how like musical the EQ sounds. Like you can crank the treble and the mids and the bass. You can crank them as high or as low as you want, and they still sound good. And you did tell me that you spent a lot of time fine-tuning how the controls react. How did that process go?
Like the thing is, you as a studio engineer, you know, like when you record an amp, usually you put like a high pass filter and a low pass filter at certain frequencies that amps transport that are not pleasant, that are not usable in a musical way. But you can implement those filters in the analog way, and that's what I did. Like late in the preamp, in the distortion stage, for example, it has a high pass that cuts everything over like 7,500, where you don't hear anything because caps don't reproduce it. So you can crank it without getting all the fizz that makes it unpleasant sounding. Cool. And you get like a treble control that sounds exactly the same in the normal usable range, but when you go past the range that you usually have on an amp, it still sounds musical because there's nothing happening in the unpleasant frequencies. And like with the bass, as you heard, like it has an insane amount of bass if you want that, like especially with a depth control that's like super responsive. And I always think like it's better to give you the option to have more bass than you need than having to add it later. You can always cut the bass, you can always turn down the bass knob, the depth knob, and if you use a boost pedal to tighten up the amp, it's going to sound thin if it doesn't have enough bass. Yeah.
So I guess you could say that it's a very versatile amp as well, because we have 2 channels. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the layout and all the controls that are here. So on top here we have the clean channel.
Yes.
And there's also this defeat switch over here, which I'll get to in my future demo, because in the future I'm also going to demo this amplifier really in depth and show you everything that it can do. But what is the defeat switch all about?
So the defeat switch caters like to modern setups where people use modelers, preamp pedals, like the really famous now, like playing the metal zone into the power amp setup. You can just go into the input and have this like as a third channel, which routes the input into the noise gate and then into the power amp. Great. So it's like a power amp only mode.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that's awesome for like preamp distortion pedals or modelers,
or if you have like rack gear that you want to use it together with.
Yeah. Or maybe even like slave another amplifier into the power amp.
Yes.
Great. So that's a feature that you don't see often in amplifiers. In fact, I can't think of another amplifier. I think there's one similar feature in the Engel SE-FE, which is called the tube driver or something, but it has an EQ tone stack.
It's different. They have like a gain stage and a tone stack.
Yeah.
Like this is like really straight to the power amp, but you can still use the gate and the loop.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. So we have a gate control over here, and that is that the similar design to the key and gate as in the pedals?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like full on key and gate in there, like exactly the same. You have the gate control that goes from off to like normal dynamic gates, and you can do gent, chugga, like staccato stuff, or like adjust it so that it even works with a boost out front.
Yeah.
And it's already internally wired in 4-cable method. So the gate is triggered from the input, but sits behind the preamp.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's like a technique that a lot of people like to use with their noise gate. So I guess I've never done that actually. But you put your guitar into a gate pedal, that goes to the input of your amp, and then the effects loop goes back to the gate.
Exactly.
And then the input of the guitar going into the pedal triggers the gate, and it cuts off the sound in the effects loop. So it also cuts off the unwanted noise that comes from the preamp in your amplifier.
It has three advantages. Like, firstly, it cuts all the preamp noise. Secondly, you can leave it on when you switch the channel because it doesn't care, because it's triggered by the guitar. And the guitar signal is pure without any noise from the preamp. So it also reacts like more dynamically and tighter because it has like the purest possible signal to react to.
Awesome. That's great. And then there are two more switches. We have the loop switch, which is obviously for enabling or turning off the effects loop, and a store switch. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the foot switch that it comes with and how that works, because it's quite a unique thing. It works in a really unique and cool way.
Yeah, so the loop, first, like it's fully tube buffered, like no solid state circuitry in that amp, except for the switching, like the signal path stays full tube at any point, even if you turn on the loop.
Yeah.
The store switch, it's for MIDI. Like the amp is MIDI controllable. Everything that is on a switch, also the channels can be controlled via MIDI. So you can go from like a gated, distorted sound to like pure power amp sound if you want, or to like a clean sound with a loop. And the foot switch basically works through the MIDI jack, and it works like a normal foot switch, but it is programmable. So you send a signal from the foot switch, then set everything as you want, press store, and every time you hit the same foot switch, it does exactly what you dialed in.
Yeah.
So you have 6 settings, which you can dial into just activate the controls like it would on a normal foot switch. But if you want, you can have complex setups where you go from a full-on lead sound to a gated rhythm sound to a clean sound or whatever. Yeah,
that's really cool. And we have the switch somewhere over here, but it's a simple, like it's a switch with 6 switches on it. It means basically that you can program like 6 presets.
Exactly.
Sort of with predetermined settings of all the switches. So that's really cool.
Also, the foot switch is powered from the amp. You don't need any external power for it. And it has a 9-volt out. So the amp has a 9-volt out for your pedals on the back. And if you use the foot switch that comes with the amp, it brings those 9-volt power to your pedal board, so you can power your pedal board with the foot switch from the amp.
That's cool. That's clever. And there's also a 9-volt power connector on the back.
Yeah, which is separately usable.
Yeah.
But you can use both of them if you like.
Yeah, for example, you can use that one for something that's in the loop, like an ambient effect or something.
Exactly.
And then
like a delay or reverb.
Yeah.
Or
and then like a wah or something that you want to have up front, and then power that with the power supply in the foot switch. So that's really cool and really clever. What else can we say about the clean channel? There's a bright switch over here.
Yeah, like it's called bright now, but it's basically like 2 really separate voicings. So it's going to be like brilliant and warm in the finished version. Like the clean channel is voiced rather vintage, like it's somewhere between a vintage Fender and a Sun amp. Like the one that I actually modeled it after is the Verellen Meat Smoke, like an amazing amp from the US that is unfortunately not made anymore. But it's a perfect pedal platform. Like it takes every drive, every modulation like a champ. Like it's really voiced to work great with pedals and give them.
Like a lot of people these days on the internet, I see their pedal boards, and a lot of people like to use like, preamp pedals, I guess you could call them, or technically it's like a distortion pedal. and they just take that to their gig and plug that into their amplifier. And I guess it gives you a lot of control over your sound because it's right at your feet. So I guess a clean channel that works really well for pedals is great because a lot of people will benefit from that.
Yes.
I mean, you could even use this amplifier just for that, you know, for pedals. You don't even need to touch the heavy channel, which would be a shame because it sounds awesome. But that's really cool, man, because I have some amplifiers here. I won't give an example right now, but that have wonderful cleans, very bright and sparkly and with a little bit of breakup or edge. Mm-hmm. But those don't tend to work really well with distortion or preamp pedals. Yes. But this will, so that's cool. And it gives you a lot of control because if you, for example, want like a vintage plexi tone and you want to use the drive channel for something really heavy, you could put like some sort of British drive pedal on the clean channel and use that as your third channel. However, you did mention to me that there's one feature on the amp that's not yet implemented in this prototype for the gain on the gain channel to lower the gain.
Yes, there will be like a high gain and a low gain setting. Like, right now it's voiced to be really heavy. Like it starts at heavy and goes to heavier.
Nice.
And we will have a switch that is like a low gain setting, which brings it into, I would say like JCM 800 gain levels.
Perfect. And will that be switchable as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Also via MIDI and via the foot switch.
Because then you can have like a clean tone, a crunch tone, and a high gain tone in terms of...
And the defeat with an external preamp.
Also that, that's really powerful. And that's just with 2 channels. So that's a really great feature. I really like that. And in terms of the controls, we've got a presence and a depth control, which is always wonderful for shaping the tone. And then each channel has a volume control, a gain control, and a 3-band EQ. And then we should also definitely talk about the cut control.
Yes.
So I mentioned this, or we talked about this a couple minutes ago, but that's like I guess you could say a low cut.
Yeah, it's a bit more complex than a simple low cut, but it's like in the first gain stage, it takes out the low end, but pushes the high mids and highs instead. So it makes it tighter and more modern. Yeah. Like I usually describe it as the Black Sabbath to Meshuggah. Like,
awesome.
On the one hand, you have like big, fat, muddy sludge tones or classic rock, if you like, if you keep the gain low. And the further to the right you go, the more modern it will be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like that feature. What I usually like to say is that every amplifier in the world should have a feature like that because it makes the tones much more flexible. But then again, it's if only you have it, it will make it more unique. But yeah, that's really cool. Like turn it all the way to the left for a very fat and thick sound, for example, for stoner or whatever, and turn it more clockwise to get a tighter and more modern response, I guess you could say. So that's really cool. Or what else you could do is leave it all the way to the left and leave the cut thing to a pedal.
Exactly.
Take the EQ pedal, for example, and use that to sort of cut some low end off. So there are many ways to go about it, but I love that it's implemented into the amplifier itself. Another thing that I noticed, and that you also mentioned earlier to me, is sort of how the resistance feels of all the controls. it feels very professional to work with, if you know what I mean. And it's just it's a joy to work with.
Yeah, like we're having all the controls, like all the knobs and all the pots. Everything is like custom made for this amp. Like I can even mention like the presence knob. It even has like a unique taper where it like combats this typical presence problem that we all know, where a presence knob does nothing over 70%. Then it has like 3 millimeters where everything is happening, and then it's useless again.
Yeah.
And this is like from the first millimeter on, it has like an audible linear response, even though like physically it's not.
Yeah. So a very useful range, basically. Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else about the amp that we should mention?
What we could mention, like what it doesn't have right now, is a line out, which it will have in the end. So you can go from the line out to your IR loader for modern setups and connect directly to the front of house, which is amazing in live situations. Talking about live situations, the chassis in here has 19-inch, so you can take it out, put it in a rack, and have it in your rack system. If you want with a multi-FX, like an XFX, and have like your whole setup wired up in like this with transformers, has 4 units, 8 units. So with an XFX, you have like 6 units, and you're done and have a full setup that's fit for every modern situation and still will leave you with pure tube sound.
Great. Amazing. And you also mentioned that the design is still going to change a little bit for the final version, right?
Yes. Like we will have lots of custom options, for example. Like the name will be changed here. It still says Sol. Like as we discussed, it's Prometheus. Like it will also look a bit more typical Lichtlaerm, like with the gold artwork, like which is actual real gold, like it's plated. We will have a golden logo. The wood stains are completely customizable, and so it will look a bit different. Like also the switch, which we haven't mentioned yet. It's like a byte switch. It's like putting a boost into like the gain channel. Like it makes it tighter, more aggressive. Like it will not be in this position here because for the prototype we put it there, but it turned out to be quite unusable.
Yeah, right. Cool. So basically when you're going to release this thing and people go to the website, they'll get the option to choose a bunch of things, basically.
Yes.
That's really cool because that will allow you to make the amp more personal. And I always like it when companies offer, features like that. That's really cool. So I guess for now, that does it when we're talking about the amplifier. I don't know if there's anything more that we can talk about. I'm definitely going to show you guys what this amplifier is capable with a wide range of guitars in a future video. So of course you got to stay tuned for that. I just want to ask you one more thing. What do you have planned for the future of Lichtlaerm Audio that you can talk about?
We have a lot of finished pedal designs. Like I started working with a lot of artists that I really respect, and there's going to be a lot of signature things. The next year is also going to be dedicated to more modulation and ambient effects because we did so much in the heavy distortion and drive department. So there's going to be more reverbs, like more classical modulation, like tremolo, chorus, delay. So that's going to be next. We will focus on the amp, maybe even more in the tube direction, which is what I personally love. And finally bring some stuff out for the bassists as well.
Oh, exciting. Well, wonderful. I'm here for it, man. And we're going to have a lot of fun with all this stuff in the future, especially the amplifier. And I'm sure that you guys are really going to love this thing when you hopefully get the chance to try one for yourself. So thank you so much for coming. And it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks.
And I wish you all the best for the future. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like and subscribe down below, as that really helps the channel out. I'd hugely appreciate it. You can also follow Sonograph Studio on Instagram and Facebook, as always. Thank you guys so much. And see you soon. Cheers. Yeah.